Hey,
Yeah.
so the Purple Gang. Tell us about the Purple Gang. They're like my favorite gangster gang, and no one's really written except you. The other books I've read about the Purple Gang, it's just kind of like blah 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 blah. It's kind of the same thing over and over again. But you really got into the meat and potatoes
Well,
of it.
I
I,
sure
I would have
tried
been
to.
afraid for you, man, the way you got it. And I'm sure everybody's dead by now, but there's some cousins, you know.
Oh, no, no, no. Granddaughters, grandson of some high ups who I am now friends with, I hope. Uh, but yeah, I've met probably, four people who are related. And
Uh-huh.
it was a fun job. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit and talk about the Mr. Purple Gang, and that would uh, I'm trying to think of his first name, Paul Kafayev, and yeah, about 15 years ago, he wrote a couple of books, and they were good, and they were all properly footnoted and all that. But you know
Yeah.
how academic books, books written academically, are kind of a yawn.
Yeah.
And so many people, younger in particular, never heard of these guys. They don't have the first clue about who they were, and that's the kind of history I like to write about. And I like to write it as history, but in a storytelling format. Uh, because that's what
Mhm.
people want. They don't want to sit there and, they're not writing a
Right.
research paper. They
Right.
just want a good story. And my sources for pretty much all my information uh, were every book I could find on Prohibition and Al Capone, the Purple Gang, all the movies I could find. And then the real thing that puts that nice little icing on the cake is I've got a newspapers.com
Right. I
subscription.
belong to it too. Yeah.
Yeah, and the only Detroit paper in there uh, is the Detroit Free Press, but good thing because that was a good paper. Uh, and
Yeah.
so I go through and I look at hundreds of articles, and I go through and I take out any dialogue or I just glean what I can, and then build it into a book. And I
I did the
enjoy it.
exact same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people
I
people
enjoy
seem to
looking at
like it.
those papers. Yeah. Right now I'm looking through the Sacramento Bee from 1900. I'm at 1907 right now.
Mm.
And just seeing all these stories and, things were pretty crappy back then too, you know.
Oh, they've always been crappy, always.
I know.
One of the interesting things that I've found, randomly looking for other stuff, was this story buried about, I can't remember his name, Pemberton, the guy who invented Coca-Cola. And there was a story buried on the society page about him marrying this like 21-year-old,
Gal,
gold
flapper.
digger. And within the first year, she's digging it with a couple, two, three different people. And so he puts a detective on her, finds her in a hotel with two men, and one
Wow.
thing or another. And I thought, wow, that was
Yeah.
worth the 6 month cost of the whole newspaper.com. It was very, very cute.
Have there been any significant movies made about the Purple Gang? Because I think a lot of the other gangs, or anyway, the Italian mafia is famous because of the Godfather. So is there anything as far as the Jewish mafia that's a
Well,
big
I
deal?
think they're even more famous because of Marty Scorsese, but that's
Yeah.
uh,
Mhm.
I have a great answer for that. No. Uh,
I know.
there is a movie, 1959, Allied Productions, which I believe they edited in the trunk of somebody's car. It's one of the worst movies I ever saw in my life. It's got Robert Blake in it.
Right.
They changed, the producers and the writers, was not a Jewish gang. It was the Miller gang. So they made it into an Irish gang. And one of the minor players in the Purple Gang, Joe Miller, and they call him the Crazy Boy Miller or something like that. Anyway, they kind of make him the head of the gang. There's no Bernstein brothers, none of that. And it was so bad that I don't even want to talk about it anymore. and then there was another treatment that was on the Untouchables, season 2, I think it was episode 2, the Purple Gang. And they were known early on for the snatch racket, a kidnapping scheme where they would kidnap gangsters and high roller gamblers, society people who wouldn't want it known that they, paid a ransom and one thing. So it was a pretty easy.
They're not calling the cops.
They're not calling the cops. And so they were very much involved in that kind of endeavor too. And I got lost in what I was saying earlier, but I'll probably do that 2 or 3 times. So.
Oh, about the films.
I always thought that the film sucked. It had Hugh Euliger, I think that was his name. And again, the guy was not so crazy. These guys were businessmen. They were not crazy. And on some level, the Purple Gang were conservative businessmen. They try to work it out and talk, with you and smile. And if that didn't work, they talk and smile with a gun. And that generally worked.
So tell us about how they cornered the Canadian liquor market and how they smuggled it into the States. And he's from there to Detroit. The Purple Gang supplied a lot of other people, especially Capone. Yeah, and I bet you the Red Arrow Highway must have been pretty wild back then too.
Tell me, Red Arrow Highway. I'm trying to figure out that metaphor. A lot of people were killed. That's what you're talking about. Oh yeah, hundreds.
It was the road to Chicago,
500 people, they say the Purple Gang killed in their reign of about 7 to 10 years, depending on who you talk to. They got in early on when Prohibition went national. It had already been in Michigan for 2 years. So the Michigan mob, the Detroit mob, were situated ideally because all of the distilleries were 1 mile across the river. You can see them.
Yeah.
And so the Purple Gang, the Mafia, and a lot of freelancers got into the business. And but little by little, as the stakes got higher and the profits, were coming in, you had the East Side Mafia, east side of Woodward, and you had the Purple Gang on the whole river from Belle Isle down to essentially Grosse Ile, and then the Lake Erie stuff that was all East Side Mafia. And basically the river was divided into 3 areas, and there was a lot of poaching that went on, but a lot of people were murdered because of it. A lot of people fell through the ice in the winter, and they didn't cross particularly at the Detroit River part of it because it narrows, and you know, the ice breaks up and whatever.
Yeah,
But
it's a fast river.
Lake Sinclair, shallow and well, relatively, and calm. So you get a nice good freeze there. So in the winter from the north of town, it would come in. And that's the picture on the cover of my book, if I can get it up there. You know, I don't know that you can see it, but
Yeah, it's great.
that truck is
Phil will
going
put
through.
put them in too and stuff. So
Yeah.
in editing, he'll put the cover.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
The truck is going through the ice, and a lot of these trucks, they take the doors off, and you know, they do other things to kind of lighten it up.
Studded tires.
Yeah, if it went through the ice, you know, it made it a lot easier for you to jump out than trying to get the door, and it sticks, you know, and you're in the water, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah, can you imagine how exciting that would have been to be in like a Model T truck flying across the ice like that, you know? Probably a guy hanging on a running board. Yeah.
It was great. And a lot of the guys that would go with the truck, like on the picture on my book, would have ice skates on, and so they could skate next to it. And so you get 5, 6 guys, 3, 2, whatever. You got to load this stuff fast, get it off the ice, and unload it fast. So
yeah.
Yeah, and there are a number of books about that very topic. One that was written last year. Oh, I can't remember what the darn title is, but a lady in Windsor wrote it, and basically it was about a family story. Her grandfather went through the ice, and she took that and built a story around it because she didn't know all the ins and outs of it. But and I wish I could remember, because it was an interesting book. And there's a book coming out in 2001 by two publisher friends of mine about it's like a river runs between it, or we share a river. It's about the Windsor and the Detroit history, and a lot of the Prohibition stuff is in there, and they're using several of my blog posts in their book. So
cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's never happened before.
Yeah.
So anyway,
so
yeah, the book is.
What made the Purple Gang so dangerous that they would come into other towns and, you know, assassinate people and just disappear again?
Well, they did some of that, but they hired most of their assassins from St. Louis. There was a gang down there. And from New York, because they were very well connected in New York. And a lot of the Purples, the Fletchers family, the Axler family, and I think the Milberg family all lived in the same apartment complex in New York City on, I believe it was Clinton Avenue. And so they all grew up together. They knew each other, and they had friends, family in Detroit.
Right.
So, you know, when they had to get out of New York, that's where they went. And then they established themselves there. And those people were very deadly. And one guy got beat to death with a hammer. You know, and it was a message.
Yeah.
And it did send a message, but the wrong message. The gang was trying to control the Cleaners and the Dyers Association through heavy-handed union practices, and that's really where the Purple Gang, as a Purple Gang, got their start. They were hired muscle, and they were brutal. The whole gang was working for $100 a week in the 1920s. These young kids, they're 20, 21, 22 years
Yeah.
old. And, they're splitting up $100 a week. They think that's big money until the second week, and they find out, hey, we can make this pay. And they started a protection racket. Anyway, they beat this guy up with a hammer, thinking that's going to give the rest of the industry a lesson in compliance. But the opposite happened. 10 people got together and went to the police and told them the story, how this gang got control of the unions, and, there had been 2 murders, there are going to be more if you don't, blah, blah. And so they picked up, the police picked up all these guys. And they were a bunch of young punks. And at the 13th precinct, and I'm trying to remember which one, Canfield Avenue, I believe. And so they're still, like they're all big tough guys. And the press is there, and the inspector that, pulled all these guys in, they asked him, who are all these guys? And he says, oh, there's some of Purple's gang. Because there was a guy called Sammy Purple, and he was kind of a higher up, and he hired these guys down here to do his muscle work. So, they're Purple's gang. By the time it got edited, at the newspaper, it became the Purple Gang. And pun intended, it was a very colorful name. And what happened is, it became shorthand for almost any kind of dastardly criminal enterprise in the city. So I think they got blamed for a lot of things that other gangs did up in Hamtramck, Wyandotte, and
Right.
in Grosse Ile, where most of the mob dons lived.
Yeah, Royal Oak.
And
Royal
still
Oak
do.
a big place too?
Hey,
Yeah.
I've got a Zoom at the Royal Oak Library in a couple of months. And
Oh yeah?
yeah. So I'm looking
Hey,
forward.
let me know about that.
Yeah, it's January 25th, and it should be pretty cool.
So the name
Well,
Purple
allegedly
had
there
nothing
was a
to do-
legend in my town. I grew up in this real small town, and the bank got robbed, and it was right next to the hardware store. And these were all these old geezers that I knew when I was a kid. And my dad actually even lived there when he was a kid. And they saw that there was a robbery going on. And they just like stepped outside with their shotguns when the guys came out. And allegedly they were in a Purple Gang. There were these guys from Detroit.
Yeah. Well,
I've yet to find a news story about it, but
there were so many people that were associates. The gang itself had a nuclear membership, but a lot of people came in and out of it, like Frank Killer Burke. Not Frank, what am I calling him?
Killer Burke, yeah.
What was his first name? I should know
Was it
all this.
Mike?
Yeah, but
Mike?
I'll get it because I wrote a Fred.
I'll get it. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll look it up.
Fred Killer Burke.
Yeah.
And he was really the most, maybe the most dangerous man during that whole Prohibition gangster period, because he was forensically proven to be at the St. Valentine's Day massacre, and there were several other Purple Gang people involved with that. He was involved with the killing of Frankie Yale in New York with the machine gun.
Right.
And the Melliflore's apartment massacre, which was the first use of a machine gun in Detroit, maybe in the whole state of Michigan.
Can you tell that story? Because that's a great one too.
The Melliflore?
Quickly about how they tricked those guys to be there and then just mowed them down. These
3 guys really got run out of Chicago by Capone when he consolidated you know, his power after Johnny Torrio died. So they went around and, you know, you got to shake out those people that are suspect or you just don't fit anymore. So these guys, 3 of them, came to Detroit with big ideas, and they wanted to muscle in on not only a lot of the Detroit River prohibition, business.
Smuggling.
They also had set up some betting parlors and, you know, some card rooms, really outskirting the Purple Gang territory, or, you know, just close enough to send a message that
They were stepping on toes.
And so, the Bernstein said we can't be having that. And it was a long, complicated story. But Ray Bernstein, who was the real muscle of the Bernstein brothers, he sets a situation up where he lures this gang to an apartment, ostensibly to give them a piece of the action. But first there's a problem. $13,000 loan that was not paid back. And it's a real convoluted story, but it has to deal with one of their booking places having a bad month. And so they couldn't pay the money back to the Bernsteins. But these guys had also been responsible for killing a couple of Purple Gang associates. And, you know, word gets back to the Bernstein brothers. They lure these guys in, thinking we're going to cut a deal, have a gentleman's agreement, shake hands, and we're going to walk out of here big shots. And they shot them, 3 of the Purple Gang triggermen. Each took a different guy, and they emptied the chamber of their revolvers in each one of them. They threw their guns in a green bucket of paint that was in the kitchen being remodeled.
Mm-hmm.
And then they run out. And a guy who was the go-between to get everybody together, he was the patsy. Purple Gang take him also. Now, the 3 shooters wanted to kill him too, but he happened to be a childhood friend of Ray Bernstein. You know, and
yeah.
So they got all together, and but it soon became clear that his head was on the chopping block. So he was arrested. He had only one option, and that was to turn state's evidence, because he was a dead man almost regardless of what he did. And so there was a great, interesting trial. I go into the whole trial, and I found a lot of information on that. So, it's all 100%.
Yeah, it's great.
And so these guys, 4 purple gangsters, go to prison. They go up to Marquette, and that's the heart of the gang. And from there, they just implode. They start, they're vying for power, killing each other off.
Right.
They imploded. So it is an interesting story. And
they made peace with the mafia on the east side and said, okay, you can have this. And
and that was very fortuitous for all of the Bernsteins. 4 of them, all of this death going around them, all around them. And none of them died by getting shot. Now, one of them was shot, and he recovered, and that's a different story. And he backed out a little bit. He got more into the business end than, being on the street. But these guys were deadly, and I really don't know what to say about them, other than you think there'd be more notoriety and more interest in them, because they were one of the most deadly gangs during the period. They were the only Jewish gang that really controlled the rackets in a whole town.
Yeah.
But people don't know them for a couple of reasons. And one is that, well, they imploded and they were a one-generation gang. The Italians, you bring your sister and you bring your cousin and your uncle and your cousin from Palermo, and you know, it just goes on and on and on forever through the generations. But these guys, it was a one-generation gang, and when Abe Bernstein cut a deal to give all of the action to the mafia, which was now then called the Detroit Partnership, he got that in exchange for lifetime rent at the Book Cadillac Hotel, and he was allowed to keep his personal bookie business, and he operated that.
Wow. Yeah.
In a little office off the mezzanine in the hotel. So, you know, he made out pretty good. And I was so lucky. I met a guy.
Go ahead.
I met a guy. He's 85 years old black man, who was a numbers runner for Abe Bernstein. And okay.
Wow.
His mother was Bernstein's escort in the later years of his life, a black lady. And Abe had lots of connections with the black community because their numbers racket was by and large in the minority communities. And so I found that very interesting. So yeah, I've met people that are connected with people who were connected. So,
what else did they have
the
there?
Purples.
Phil, what?
I was just gonna say, what other rackets did the Purple Gang, excel at? What did they have their hands in?
Well, they started with the muscle and strong arm business, and that worked into protection racket. When they had this big court case against them, when all these punk guys were brought in, there was a case. The lawyers strung it on. Nobody was convicted. In another gang, it's confusing to go into it, but the Sugar House Gang, some of those people went to jail, and that gang fell apart. And it left a power vacuum that the Purple Gang just kind of stepped in and filled. So then they went into labor racketeering, the snatch racket, numbers and betting parlors. They set up a wire service and throughout the whole town, and everybody, all the betting parlors had to subscribe, pay money up front for the right to be in this wire service, and that made them boku bucks. So they were businessmen.
Why did it only last a generation? Why didn't they hand it down to their children or another generation?
Well, I think part of it is because there weren't many children to leave it to. There were so many of them that died, were killed, their wives, their kids got lost in history. Some of the wives had to, they went back to work, whatever that was. And it's not like the mob had an insurance plan. Their families, mothers, fathers, grandparents, did not like the idea that, their kids, their descendants, were gangsters. So I don't believe that it was it was not highly praised. With the Italians, right. All the respect and all of that, malarkey that they got built up, that wasn't how these guys operated. And when they went down in the Collingwood massacre, the four of them went to prison. everybody else in the gang, except for A. Bernstein, was strong on muscle, but weak in brains. And so one by one, they got picked off, or they picked each other off. So I would have to say that they caused their own extinction. And there was, afterwards, you'd hear about a purple gang in, I believe it was Cleveland, and one thing, wannabes. There was one purple gang, and they lived fast and hard, and then when it was over, it was over.
The plot of the Godfather, the original Godfather movie, is that he doesn't want Michael to go into the family business, and he wants him to be a senator or a congressman, somebody respected, somebody that he would buy and pay off. I guess I always thought was funny, but so this was, they never, obviously in the Godfather that didn't happen. Did that happen for this gang, or did this gang just get killed off?
They mostly got killed off, and I'm trying to think of any of the children that carried on the family business, and I can't think of a single one. But in Detroit now, the mafia is a little bit after the period of my book. The two head guys, Bill Tuco and Zarelli, Tony Zarelli, Anthony Zarelli. I might have my names wrong. They sent their kids to college in business administration. And when they graduated, for a present, they were given the, I think it was the Hazel Park Raceway. So they,
nice,
respectable, degree-carrying sons of the mafia, are the people that, own the racetrack.
Own and run the racetrack. Is that to this day kind of thing?
I don't know, and I'll be honest to say I'm not anxious to look into it.
Yeah, it's not like it really matters at this point.
Yeah. So, but that Godfather prophecy did live itself out with the Detroit mob.
When I first heard the name Purple Gang, and you just explained how it got it from Purple's gang, mm-hmm. In my head, in my stupid head, I just thought it was a reference to Judaism somehow. I heard the color purple is holy to them, only a rabbi can wear it, or something like that.
Yeah, I came across a number of theories, never that one, and these guys apparently were not particularly religious. I had a story from somebody who said her grandmother had a restaurant in Ecorse, and right there, that's a hotbed for smuggling, the Rouge River and everything. And she had a little diner, and she said the Purple Gang guys would come in there and order a ham sandwich, because they wouldn't do that because their grandmother might find out about it, and so
they go to Ecorse.
They get that good pork down there. A lot of pork downriver.
I figured they were going to hell anyway. They may as well eat well.
Yeah. So anyway,
did the Purples have anything to do with? Did the Purples have anything to do with Jerry Buckley, the radio announcer that was the journalist guy that was assassinated?
Yeah, I don't think they had anything to do with the assassination. That was strictly a Detroit Mafia operation. But the guy sitting next to Jerry Buckley, Jerry's supposed to meet a mysterious woman in the lobby of the LaSalle Hotel, and he's sitting there reading a paper in a overstuffed chair, and in an overstuffed chair next to him is a Purple Gang guy, and I forget which of the movie theaters he owned. The Adams,
Yeah.
or one of the downtown, famous ones. He was like the owner and exhibitor at the theater, and he happened to be sitting next to him for some reason. These three guys come in and just start pumping bullets through the newspaper into Buckley, and the Purple Gang guy kind of rolls off to the right and gets undercover, and then the first chance he gets, he hightails it to his room. I think he lived in the LaSalle.
Right.
And it was an incredible, that whole story is incredible because it seems so much like what we're going through politically now.
Yeah.
You had the media, Jerry Buckley, going after a corrupt mayor of Detroit who was supported by the Ku Klux Klan openly, among other things. I've discovered in a lot of my research in gangsters that they're overwhelmingly Republican. And so there's a real Republican motif with that story in my book, because when the mayor starts getting some flack, he tells his people, don't talk to the press. We're going to take money from here for this and that and the other. We're going to raise the transit fares by 3 or 4 cents a ride, all kinds of stuff. People are outraged, and it becomes a real ugly political battle. And there's a case, eventually, it's at least 2 years after they finally get the 3 alleged murderers, and they all walked free. So that's how it goes in Detroit.
Yeah.
Big cities. You pay people who can do things for you.
And Buckley was a crusader. He had his own radio program, and he was really against that mayor, and just got whacked. He got like shot 18 times or something.
I would love to have heard some of his broadcasts to compare him with what we have with the news today. And I was struck by the parallels, and I thought, wow, things do change in this world, but human nature doesn't. We're still the same ornery bastards we have always been.
Well, it just reminds me that we just had that the debate and the whole Proud Boys statement, stand down and stand by. And so what did they do? They just said in the newspaper, we're standing down and we're standing by, Mr. President. Like, he just emboldened them,
Yeah, he did. And well, we've seen enough bitter fruit. I hope we don't have to see a lot more. That's about all I want to say about that situation.
Not either. So
but like you were saying, if you feel down about today's world, all you have to do is look at a newspaper from 1939 or 1926, and
or think about,
like, wow.
Think about what it must have felt like to be any minority through history, because the same types of things that we're talking about now, with black people, are as old as beyond history. And again, human beings don't change a lot. We were born apes and we're still apes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, actually, that's giving the apes an insult, because I understand the apes, all except for the chimpanzees. Most of them are peaceful.
Well, that's not what I know about them. And I'll tell you, they'll chew your face off and your gonads quicker than $5 hooker. Now, here's the problem. That I have, not a problem, but it's a connection. I was watching one of these Yule Gibbons shows, you know?
Yeah.
I think it was National Geographic, and it was about apes, and you may have seen it. It was so violent. And these bunch of apes, you know, attacked these. Anyway, people who study primates and chimpanzees in particular found that they'll stay off on the background until they get a 3-to-1 advantage. And then they go in.
Yeah.
Have you seen the
Then
bonobos?
I found out that at the United States War Museum, not War Museum, but War College, they teach about tactical and strategic maneuvers. And there it is.
Yeah.
For a 3-to-1 advantage. And I went, boom.
Yeah. Or monkeys.
Yeah.
Have you heard about the bonobos?
Yes, I have. I know the name. I'm trying to think.
They look just like chimpanzees. That you can't even tell them apart by looking at them. Except the bonobos solve all of their problems through sex.
Yeah.
So they're the sex apes. They like I said, they look identical. You can't tell them apart except instead of beating each other up and murdering everything around them, they're having sex with each other all day long.
They're a little bit smaller than chimps.
Yeah,
Aren't they just a little bit.
Yeah, I can't tell them apart. You know,
I think I caught some of that action at the San Diego Zoo, and I want to tell you, hit and run, man, bing, bang, off, bing, bang, 4 times, but not, you know, they're not standing there, you know, looking around. Hit and run.
Yep. So, where can we get this book at?
Well, all of my books are available on Amazon by title or by my author name. Okay. Well, I have my own website also because early on somebody told me I needed it. Actually, I guess maybe I do, but after I got the Amazon one, that's where I direct everybody anyway. But if you spell my name, Gregory A. Fournier.com, and it takes you there, and from there you can go to the buy site. But I'm
gonna put the link in anyway. I just wanted to make sure because we've spoken to some other authors that keep their books in different places, you know, for financial reasons. But
well, I'm not that sophisticated, you know, and I don't make that much money.
Yeah, none of us do on that.
Yeah.
Hey, are you related to the Fournier, like in Bay City? Have you ever heard about this guy named Fournier?
Yeah.
Who had a double row of teeth. He was this big lumberjack, and he was like really mean, and used to beat the crap out of people.
I have
and they
heard
finally,
about
like,
him.
Somebody smacked him in the back of the head with a mallet while he was coming off a boat. Just went up to Collingwood from Bay City, you know, to picnic or something. And they bashed his head in, and his skull was supposedly like 1 inch thick.
Oh, that sounds like one of my relatives. But I've heard
that's an old Michigan name.
I've heard that story. Well, it's you know, French Canadian. In fact, France. When I went to Paris in my youth, you know, it's pretty common. And and there are 2 ways to pronounce it. Fournier is how the lazy Americans do it, and it's Fournier as far as the French. And so, you know, when I was a Cretan Michigander, it was Fournier, but when I became a sophisticated
Island, you were an animal.
Oh man, I loved it.
I actually worked with a guy named Chris Fournier, but he lives here in Sacramento.
Yeah, well, there I come across them. I had a couple of Fourniers when I taught in Ypsilanti, and one of them was Gay. Her name was Gay Fournier, and so she graduates. She's in college. A few years later, I walk into a bar, and there she is, her and another friend, and I look and I recognize her. I thought I recognized. So I went up to her. I said, "Are you gay?" Because that's kind of personal, isn't it? So I bought her a drink and I went, you know,
That's
but yeah, she was gay. And when I moved out to California there, San Diego area, there was a sporting goods store. They had been here for 20 years at least. And so everybody would ask me if I was related to them. And I don't know anybody, you know?
yeah. It's kind of like Smith for the French, right?
Yeah, very much so. Very much. And there's another Greg Fournier knocking around in the downriver Detroit area who happens to be related to me, but, you know, 2, 3 removed, you know, kind of. And that's why I use my full name. I go by Greg, but, you know, Gregory A, just to stand out, because there are a lot of me out there. I said, I'm getting lost in the shuffle. Who are all these posers?
That's funny.
Yeah. So, well, I'm going to get that Ypsilanti book. I was just a kid when those murders happened, you know, and I was up in north of Bay City, you know, Linwood. And, but, you know, it was scary. My sister was going to college at Central at the time, and, you know, and they kept finding these murdered girls. So I'm going to read that, and we'll probably have you on again with that, because that's a forgotten. That was one guy that did it, right?
Yeah, John Norman Collins. And
right.
I can talk all day about him. I lived a block up the street from him. I had a couple of, you know, altercations with him. He swung at me a couple times.
Really?
Yeah. But that's before, you know, we knew who he was or what he was up to or anything. He was just a belligerent person, and lived a block up the street from me. Walked past his house 4, 5, 6 times a day, back and forth to campus at Eastern. And you know, I kind of forgot about the story. There was a book that was a novelization, changed all the names, and really did a disservice to the history. And I read that again about 10, 15 years later, and then you know, another 10, 15 years after. And each time I was less satisfied with the story. And by that time, people were on the internet saying what a nice guy this was. He was railroaded by Sheriff Harvey, who was a Boss Hogg character. And he is a Boss Hogg character. And I've gotten to know him, and I've become friends with him, even though he tear gassed me during the campaign riots. And I told him that he was in a helicopter throwing canister tear gas down on us. And and he was laughing about it. And I said, oh yeah, I got a whiff of your perfume. and he laughed, and he said, I can't tell you how many people have told me that. And hundreds, because that's how many people were there. Hundreds, maybe a couple thousand. And but I got to know him on the basis of his connection with the story. He was the county sheriff at the time. And interesting guy, and I would like to come on again and talk about more detail on that book, but would like to say that I got an offer by a Canadian media company to buy a 2-year option for my book, $1,000 a year. And better than Hollywood, who was sticking me in the rump. But that's part of my larger story. So they called me and said, hey, we want to give you some money. And I thought, wow.
Those Canadians.
Who put you up to that? Oh, no, we're serious. So really.
Wow.
Well, listen, I get the money. I don't hear anything for like 16, 17 months. And then I get a call saying, we hired 2 lady writers who are writing a pilot and for a possible 6-part miniseries. And I'm thinking, that's exactly what I want. You can't tell that story in a 2-hour, 2.5-hour slasher movie. And that's what they wanted to do in Hollywood with it. And so I'm really excited. I don't know that I'll see any more money. I don't know that it'll ever get made. I may not even, you know, takes 10 years to make a movie. I might be dead. Who knows? But
Right.
What a thrill that is. And not only that, but did you see how well the
Yeah.
Canadians did at the Emmys this year? Most of those
Yeah.
movies were from Canada or with Canadian people, Canadian production companies.
Mhm.
And hey, if I can
Yeah.
hook up with them, I'm there.
It's hard for me to tell Canadians
Yeah.
just by looking at them.
Well, you gotta, when they talk, that's when you can hear, a
Yeah, a
boot.
little
Get
bit.
them to say outhouse.
The
That's how you can catch them.
they
A
got
boot.
that little bit
Yep.
French
Oot.
thing going, just a little bit of it. And
Going oot. I'm going
uh,
oot to the hoose.
I love Canada, and I've kind of tried to reacquaint myself with it. And now this media company is in Toronto, so now I have an excuse to go to Toronto.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
Go in the
hope
summer.
to be a script
That's great.
consultant.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome. Look forward to
Yeah.
seeing that.
yeah.
So, all right. Well, thanks for spending the evening talking with us, Greg.
It was just like talking.
Yeah,
Very,
I
very
told
easy.
you.
Well, sometimes it's stressed and strained and not comfortable. I even put on a tie.
Right.
Well, thanks for
Next
dressing up
time I
for
Yeah, I
me.
won't.
saw that. That's the first here.
Well, next
Most
time I
people don't
won't.
wear pants, so
I'm going to go open-throated.
Hey,
okay.
yeah, comfortable is
Okay.
best.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much. I appreciated it, and I'll look forward to doing it again.
Thanks
Good
again, Greg.
talking to you.
Look forward to that. Have a
Okay.
great night.
Thank you. Bye.
See you.